great. Good evening. So we're going to wait just about 2 more minutes for everybody to get in.
Hi, Claire. How you doing this evening?
Betty, hi.
Yes.
Okay, how are you this evening, Miss Esther?
Oh, I'm doing okay.
Good. Glad you're here.
Yeah, and I forget I'm doing this via phone, and I don't unmute, and so if somebody asks me something, I'm saying, oh, that you have to do the unmute thing, and not with the, not on the Zoom through the laptop. But I'm okay. So do you have any time next week that we can meet and talk? Well, that we could talk?
Certainly.
Huh?
Best would be either early Tuesday or Thursday morning.
Okay.
That's the best time, or Friday afternoon. So let me know. And if you want to just text me offline, we can set up a time, but Tuesday and Thursday mornings early are always very good.
Okay, will do.
Okay, great. Okay, what do you think? Should we get started? A few more minutes?
It looks like you got started with all the people there a long time ago.
Claire, I think I know I certainly haven't come in through the video. I think there's a large, here we go. Seems to be coming through now.
Who is that? Fred? No.
Yeah, I said, because I'm looking at a screen here and it's got many more people than I thought would be here. It's got 68 participants listed.
Wow, all right, fabulous. Well, I think we can start if
Says 70 now.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm Claire Kelly, the First Ward Council member. I'm so glad we have so many people here this evening. It's so important to have your participation and your feedback and input, and also just so you can see this proposal and share your thoughts. We have with us this evening Johanna Neiden, who is our Community Development Director. Thank you for coming, Johanna, and also Megan Jones, who's our Neighborhood and Land Use Planner from the city, to answer questions regarding zoning and other. And Jonathan, would you like to introduce the development team? Jeffrey, Michael, and
actually, Alderman Kelly, I'll take the floor if you don't mind.
Jeffrey, okay.
Okay. If I could also ask if everyone could perhaps just mute their microphones until we turn over the floor for questions, that'll just help tremendously.
And Jeffrey, if I may, just beforehand, for format, what I'd like to do is try to keep it to about 10-minute chunks, because I know oftentimes folks will have a question about something you spoke to. So I just don't want to make people have to wait till the very end. So if that's right, we'll take a pause, not more than 5 minutes, after about 10 minutes.
Well, I have about 10 minutes of just remarks, just to give some context and background. Then we could break and ask some questions. Then Tim Kent will go over the design and the architectural aspects of the building. And then if you want to just open up the floor for more questions.
Yeah, I just don't want to have long stretches in case some people have to leave early and they want to comment. So why don't we go ahead, you start with about your 10-minute presentation, and then we can maybe break the other presentation just so folks, again, who might have to leave early or who don't want to, aren't taking notes, in case they have questions, just a short pause in case there are questions. I know residents have oftentimes expressed to me that they appreciate that format.
So, well, first of all, thank you for hosting this virtual meeting. and welcome everybody. My name is Jeff Michael. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Horizon Realty Group, where I'm the applicant and the owner of the property that we're going to talk about tonight, which is 1621 Chicago Avenue. And so also joining me virtually, I think I saw some of their names, is Tim Kent. He's our architect with Papa George Hames. I also have Jonathan Perman, he's been serving as our government liaison. And then our legal team, I have Graham Grady and Sylvia Micah with Taft Law, and they're here to answer any questions if we get in the weeds on zoning issues or legal matters. And then it's everybody. So Horizon Realty Group, we've been around for the last 35 years or so. It was started by my father, Danny Michael. I believe he's also on the call. And I've been working with him 20 plus years out of those 35 or so. And what we do is over that period of time, we've amassed what I think is a pretty remarkable and beautiful portfolio of apartment buildings, comprised of about 28 buildings and about 2,400 apartments from as far south as Chicago's South Loop neighborhood, all the way up north through the neighborhoods until you reach Rogers Park, and also the Marion, which is located next door to the property that we're going to discuss today. And what we generally do is we take great pride in finding buildings that have been neglected, dilapidated, and infuse new life into those buildings by renovating them, putting our own capital into them, repositioning them, and leasing them out, and we hold them. And I want to emphasize that point, that we hold them for everybody here to sort of distinguish us from a lot of what other developers do. These 28 or so properties that we own will hopefully be owned by my children one day and their children, and so on and so forth. Case in point is with the Marion, which is next door. The Marion was bought along with this land in 2012. And at the time, some of you may know or remember, it was called the North Shore Retirement Hotel. And it is and was a senior living community. When my father and I went to see it because it was put up for sale, it was very sad. We walked into this place, and while it was housing many Evanstonians, seniors, it was, for lack of a better place, it was gross. It smelled, it was neglected. It just needed an infusion of life. And we looked at each other and we saw the potential that the North Shore Retirement Hotel had, and we simply wanted to do something with it, just because we love the challenge of revitalizing something. And also coupled with the fact that my dad revealed to me that he actually got married at the North Shore Retirement Hotel back in 1967 in the ballroom, which is still there. So had we been thinking with our pocketbooks and our brains, the most financially lucrative thing to do would have been to either knock the building down, quite frankly, or close it, ask the seniors to find other places to live, reposition that building as a market rate apartment building and rent it out to the Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z population and go about our merry way. That would have been extremely, certainly the most lucrative avenue to take with that building. But we didn't do that. We thought with our hearts, we thought with our conscience, we thought with our moral compass, and we said, we can't displace the people that live here. These are seniors. They put their heart and soul into this community, and we felt like we had to get back to them. So we took the more difficult path to preserve it as senior housing. So what ensued was 4 years of basically sweat and tears and $40 million of our own capital that we put into the North Shore Retirement Hotel and gave birth to what's now known as the Marion, which is undoubtedly the nicest senior living community in the North Shore. It's got unbridled or unparalleled services. The food is exquisite there. We have an amazing social program and educational program for the seniors there. And I would challenge any one of you, the 50 or 60 people that are on this call, walk in there one day, take a look for yourself. If you don't believe me, don't take my word for it. Ask any senior that lives there. Ask them what the Michael family has done for the 1600 block of Chicago Avenue. And why am I sharing this all with you? Because it's important. Because when you're looking at this project and you're evaluating this project, I don't want you to think of it just as a mathematical equation and does this project fit the zoning code and the XYZs and the numbers and all that. But look at it in the entire fabric of what it is and what we have done as a family and the contribution that we've made to this community so far. And I say that because we put our money where our mouth is. And I believe, given that we've done it at the Marion next door, that it warrants some credence and some weight in the overall consideration of this project. Because the truth is, anybody else that looks at this 1621 Chicago Avenue development, in contrast to us, will most likely be an institutional type developer. If you don't have familiarity with institutional type developer, more times than not, they're not local. They raise their money from people that certainly are not local. And it's a numbers game for them. They'll go and they'll build some building on this property. Once it hits certain numbers or a certain internal rate of return for their myriad of investors, they'll sell that building to somebody that's even more remote than the Evanston community. And they'll give the leasing and management obligations and responsibilities to a management company that has no connection or tie to the community. And I tell you this because that's the complete opposite of who we are. We visit all our properties all the time. We fret over every little aspect of every property, and we are involved to the nth degree in all of our properties. But my point is, we are invested in our community, and we will be invested in whatever we do at 1621 Chicago Avenue. And I also say that because we really feel in our heart and soul that this is what we're proposing, what you're going to hear tonight from Kent, is the highest and the best use for that piece of land in Evanston. So I ask you to take this all in consideration when evaluating this. Now I want to turn a little bit to the need and the affordable housing in Evanston. Evanston's a great community, yet its population has been stagnant. In fact, since 1980, Evanston's population has grown less than 6%. To ensure that the restaurants that we love and the small businesses we support will remain, and that the new ones will and that new ones will fill our vacant storefront, the simple fact is Evanston needs more residents to support the business district. And that's what the legacy is going to bring. More than 300 new residents living in the heart of Evanston's business district, shopping, eating, and supporting the local economy every day. Additionally, before the pandemic, Evanston's office spaces were filled. In January, the Evanston Land Use Commission approved a new 11-story life science building at the former Burger King spot near the Orrington. As Evanston prepares for workers to return to the office, we have an opportunity here to make Evanston the full package, a place to work, shop, eat, and live. This is particularly appealing to those that aren't interested in living in Chicago. There's a lot of people flocking to the suburbs, but they want the amenities. They want access to the lake, to the public transportation, the quality restaurants, and the nice living options. Yet our project is more than just an apartment building. We're supporting Evanston's commitment to increasing the number of available affordable housing units, and that's important. The city of Evanston has identified multiple possible solutions to creating more affordable housing. One is incentivizing the development of more affordable housing by providing incentives relating to the size and the height for new buildings in exchange for more affordable units. This is a compromise that has worked successfully in Chicago and frankly in Evanston so far. And so with this intent, we've committed 18 affordable housing units, 5 above the 13 that's required for this project. That's going to add 20% more affordable units to Evanston's current inventory in downtown Evanston. A couple points on the design of this building, which Tim is going to get into more detail in a minute. Over the last year, we've had spent time listening to the community's concerns about this project, and we've made changes as a result. Our design has evolved into a more modern, narrow glass building. We moved the vehicle entrance to the back of the building. It used to be in the front, but there were concerns about cars entering and exit the front of the building and to cross over the protected bike lane that's on Chicago Avenue. So we've listened to the community feedback on that, the city planners, and we moved that to the alley behind the building. The retail shops on the first floor are all going to be ADA accessible. Our goal is to secure at least one restaurant tenant who can offer patio dining and really activate this part of the 1600 block of Chicago Avenue. The 3 businesses that are currently there are aware of our plans. We've been in constant communication with them, and some of them we've had discussions about possibly relocating to some of our retail space in the existing Marion building. We have retail there also, and we've also had discussions about also offering them space in the new building once it's built. But beautifying these storefronts, adding landscaping, and creating a reason for people to be on the street, whether they live in the building or they're coming to visit people to live in the building, is going to revitalize the current underutilized part of town. And then I also want to address the height and the economic impact of this project. I recognize some people have concerns about the height. We've heard it. Our goal is to build a structure that fits the evolving aesthetic of downtown Evanston, supports the much desired economic development and tax revenue a multi-unit property offers. Currently, the east side of Chicago Avenue allows zoning that would allow a building to be built up to 105 feet without city council permission. The zoning also allows for what's called a developer allowance, which would enable a builder to build up to 145 feet, not including any parking level. So let's assume we were to get a developer allowance, which we believe would be reasonable for this project. A building of this density would typically have 4 levels of parking, which would bring the building height to 185 feet. Our proposed building is 195 feet, albeit we are utilizing 2 of the 4 additional levels of parking as livable taxable space. We believe 2 levels of parking, which is going to equate to 57 parking spaces, or what you will see is 180 units, will more than meet the demand for residents parking, given Evanston is a transit-friendly, workable, and bikeable community. So while some may claim that the building is way too tall, I want to understand we are asking for 10 additional feet that would be allowed with the developer allowance. In fact, the last 10 feet are set back from the street to house mostly mechanical equipment. So from a street vantage point, the building actually appears to be 185 feet. And people will ask, well, why that tall? Why is it that height? Predominantly for 3 reasons. One is to adequately defray the automatic fixed costs that go into building any building, irrespective of the height, such as your soft costs, the foundation, amenity spaces that this type of building requires, the parking levels. You need to simply build a certain height in order to justify and spread out those costs over enough revenue producing square footage. Second, in order to build a building that's going to create 18 affordable units in prime Evanston real estate space, you need to be able to subsidize that lost revenue with additional revenue at market rates. It's simple math. And third, you need to build a structure with enough units and residents to have a significant impact on the local economy and advance Evanston's affordable housing goals. The Legacy is not going to be the tallest building in Evanston or even the tallest building on the block. Their area already has similar height, density, and mixed-use development projects. Park Evanston, just across the street, is 236 feet. 601 Davis, which is also proposed to be across the street, would be 252 feet. And there are other buildings that exceed their current zoning heights throughout Evanston. Lastly, before I turn it over to Tim, is some brief points on the economic impact I want you to consider. If this building is built, it's going to have a significant economic impact on Evanston. The property currently yields just over $100,000 in property taxes. The new development will offer $1.5 million just in new revenue in the first year, mostly from fees that are associated with construction. If the property were built this year, by 2026, when it's fully assessed on a new property tax are in place, the new tax revenue is expected to be more than $600,000, and it will grow to more than $1.5 million annually by 2028. We all know property taxes fund our schools, our government, our police, our fire. The better our schools and the safer our communities, the higher property values will be. The legacy will generate an estimated $12 million of new net revenue in 12 years to the city of Evanston and 2 school districts. That will not be realized if we're not able to build to the proposed building height. And then finally, with respect to job creation, we think that the legacy will ultimately create anywhere from 35 to 50 permanent jobs, depending upon what the retail users are. If they're restaurants, that'll be more. And we're committed to providing Evanston residents with first crack at those jobs. And we will similarly encourage our tenants to do the same. So that's all I have in terms of my prepared remarks. Like I said, I would like Tim to address the design aspects of the building so you could see what we're proposing. And then I'd prefer to open for questions, but I'll defer to you.
Yeah, I'll just, again, thank you, Jeff. I just want to take a pause for a moment. We won't take a long one in case there are any questions or comments on what Jeffrey Michael just shared. I'd like to give the public who's here, this is a community meeting, a chance to comment or question, and we'll pause again after the next presentation. So let's see, Johanna, Megan, if I'm missing any, let's see. Okay, so can I hear from, let's see, I see the hands raised for Dana, Dean?
Yeah, thank you, Claire. I'd like to understand better the parking and how it compares to what the requirement would be, because I'm not sure. I understand that Evanston's supposed to be a transit community with, you know, that building would clearly be accessible to both train lines, but my experience is that people still have 1 or 2 cars, even if they take the train regularly.
So we're providing 57 parking spaces for 180 units, which is a parking ratio, I believe, of 0.32. Our experience is, given our portfolio, we don't experience a 1-to-1 parking ratio or parking demand by our renters, and certainly not a 2-to-1. The reality is, in today's day and age, given the transit-oriented districts, it typically falls at about 1/2-to-1. So we're coming in at about 0.32. I don't know, Jonathan, maybe you could chime in on exactly what the requirement is. I don't have that at my fingertips.
Well, I think we also have Megan or
Oh, yeah, Megan.
Anna, if you'd like to comment.
Yes, so the required parking spaces would be 130, and that's taking into account that this is within a transit-oriented development area, and also the on-site affordable units that they are proposing, which would not have any required parking.
Okay, great. Thank you, Megan. And let's see, is Senior Pastor Grace Matthew? I know she was going to have to leave early from the First United Methodist.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you so much, Council Member Kelly. Thank you, Mr. Michaels, for your presentation. I also want to quickly say I am also a member of a community, of a family that has contributed to Evanston. I come from the family of the Methodists of Evanston. So I also want to claim a piece of being, family that has contributed to Evanston. I want to make 2 points. Regardless of the simple math you talk about, your building is so tall that it overwhelms us, your neighbors. And we are charged with preserving a sacred space, not just for us as Methodists or Christians, but for Evanston. Ask the Jewish Reconstructionist congregation, and they will tell you that for 30 years, they have met at First Church twice a year for high holidays. And we have gone the extra step of always covering our Christian reredos so that they can claim sacred space. Ask the Sufi Center. They will tell you that First Church is where they organized. Ask the Martoma congregation. They will tell you that they used First Church building to celebrate their bishop. Ask the Coptic Christians. They will tell you that First Church was where they held their chapel services for months. Ask Bet Emet. They will tell you that First Church is where they held their time together while they were building their worship center. Ask Garrett Seminary. They will tell you that they use First Church Sanctuary, which seats 1,800 people for their graduation ceremony. And First Church also has a memorial garden, or if I can put it more clearly, it has a cemetery where Evanston's most amazing residents are interred. For instance, Bishop Edsel Ammons, the first Black bishop in the United Methodist Church. For instance, Alderman John Rudy and his wife Doris. For instance, just 2 weeks ago, Marv Julia. I'm calling all that in order to say that the sacred space is violated by that large building. There is no way we can escape it, regardless of where we stand in our sacred space. The building is just too tall. It's beautiful, but it is matter out of place.
Here, here.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you very much. There are a few more comments. If you can wait till later, let me know. Otherwise, Jenny Washburn.
Thank you, Councilmember Kelly. First of all, I can't believe we're back here, but I just have some remarks that I would like to share. So what Jeffrey Michaels failed to mention in his Horizon backstory, which was a very rosy picture that he painted, were the lawsuits, the discrimination complaints, filing for bankruptcy. This isn't a project that they thought through with their hearts and their moral compass. they sued a tenant for alleging that an apartment that she lived in that was managed by them was moldy. And then Jeffrey said they were a sue first, ask questions later type organization. This is a money grab to claw themselves out of bankruptcy. And that's really the fact, plain and simple. I implore you, please do not demean who we are for this proposed project so that they can grab this because of their greed. And we've seen it time and time again through this litigious greed. And I do not believe for 1 second that when this company receives their tax valuation, that they will not commit to not appealing that tax valuation. So please, again, I implore you, do not work with this company. Do not align yourselves with this company. They have shown time and time again who they are. We know it, you all know it. I have sent you all the information. I've sent you the petitions. That is my comment. I thank you so much for hearing me today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Washburn. And there are 2 more hands raised. Fred, would you like to comment now?
Yes, a couple of things. First of all, if you look at my picture, there's a building behind me and a building behind that and a building to the left of that. I'm in Sherman Plaza. I'm on the 19th floor. That building you see tall is the Chase Bank building. And the little white building that you see is the building that'll be right across the street from this property that you're looking to build. And then the lower building is the one that's on the north side of Church Street. So that 19-story building is going to be quite large compared to the buildings beyond it and around it. The other thing, I looked at all the drawings and all the sketches that you sent over. For instance, that building has only 2 loading docks on the alley, 2 spaces for trucks. And a building of that size with retail is going to have that alley clogged up. It's not enough space to have any deliveries really. And if you look at the parking 57 cars, you're going to have parking that's not going to be half of what the residents and the people who work in the retail space to park the cars. So I think they're coming up with something that's covered up that they don't want us to know about. And I suggest that everybody, if they get a chance to look at the 19 or 20 some pages that were sent out, if you go to the different drawings, this building will not handle the number of people that he wants and make it not inconvenient for the rest of the residents of Evanston. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Hey,
I have one more hand, otherwise we'll continue, but I don't know, R. Froescher, I'm not sure who that is. Can you wait or?
Yeah. I'll make a quick comment if that's okay. Okay, Councilmember Kelly, and I have more comments for later, but I want to agree with the comments that have been made, point out that Reverend Grace has a 650 member congregation. So a huge congregation, all of whom are opposed to this. This has been run past us a number of times. I find it offensive, frankly, to have someone who doesn't live in Evanston tell me what Evanston ought to be looking for. And finally, the comments that there are other buildings as tall or taller on this block is just misleading at best. And Mr. Michaels knows that. That block, that specific block is, according to the 2009 Evanston plan, supposed to have built no more than 6 to 10 stories in height because it backs up against a residential neighborhood as well as the church. I've got other concerns about behavior and process, but I'll bring those up later. And so I'll hold the rest of my comments for later. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Okay, I think that's it for those comments, and we'll go ahead and we can continue on with the architecture presentation. Thank you all for your comments.
Great. So am I going to be sharing my screen, Megan, or are you going to be sharing the presentation that I emailed you? I can share my screen if it's easier.
Yeah, you should have the ability to share your screen.
Okay, let me do that. Is that visible to everyone? Can
Yeah,
everyone see that?
yes,
Great.
thank you.
Great. Thanks again, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Again, my name is Tim Kent, and I'm with Papa George James Architects in Chicago, and we're excited to share with you the latest iteration of this project that we think is going to be very exciting for this location. The location is, I think everybody knows where it is. For those of you who may not be quite sure, it is on the eastern edge of downtown Evanston in the red box. It's on Chicago Avenue on the east side of the street between Davis and Church. As I zoom in a little bit tighter, we see that it's a mid-block location. And this is a view on the left-hand side here. I'm circling it with my cursor of how the building would sit within the larger context of downtown Evanston. And we see how it is part of that transition, stepping down from the taller buildings that are to the west in the downtown core in the D4 transitional district. This is also a view looking from the east across the downtown area. Our building is here. I'm circling it with my cursor. And so it's proposed to be an 18-story building. And this shows the height of some of the other buildings that are in the area, including the Park Evanston, which has been mentioned is directly across the street at 236 feet. Our building to the cap would be 195 feet tall as proposed. So this is a view of the tower from the north, and it is a glass building. It is intended to be contemporary and to represent a modern take on a residential building for today. We've paid particular attention to the design at the base of the building and looked very carefully at how the building meets the ground. We want to make sure that this is a very pedestrian scaled environment, that we maintain the street wall that is there. And I have some additional photos in a second that will show in more detail how that's intended to be designed. And we've taken great care in making a building that has a sculptural quality and is architecturally very conservative yet contemporary, that's dignified and handsome and elegant. And one thing to note is that we've talked about the 185-foot height. That is to the street wall edge here. The 195-foot is this additional story that's in the middle of the building that's away from the street. So the apparent height of the building from a pedestrian perspective, either from the east or the west, is something that would be 185 feet tall. This top part houses mostly mechanical space and a little bit of amenity space for the residents. At the base of the building too, we have 2 floors of parking that are screened by architectural elements. And you'll see in a second here, this is another view from the south. We see on the right-hand side of the image where my cursor is, this is the existing Marion structure. And this, the base of the building is all in the same plane, so there aren't any setbacks, and we're continuing that pedestrian experience that's very strong as it exists today on Chicago Avenue. That's very important to us. And you also see how we're taking the building and breaking down some of the elements through the inclusion of balconies and those kinds of elements. There are various setbacks that enhance and articulate the building in a strong way, we feel. So this is showing what the experience would be like to walk past the building. And this is very carefully scaled. So we're working at a scale that's appropriate for retail. We have the canopy here that's sort of in the center of the design, and that's where the lobby for the building will be. I'll show you that in the floor plan in a second. And we want this to be a continuation of the sidewalk character that's there today. We have retail on both sides of the residential lobby entrance, on the left-hand side here and on the right-hand side. We hope that there will be an opportunity for a restaurant use, 1 or more, and that those could activate and further enhance, as Jeff was saying earlier, the sidewalk experience with outdoor dining. And you'll also remember from previous versions of the project that we previously had shown porte cochere and curb cut. That has been removed. That is now being all that vehicular traffic to satisfy the safety concerns related to the bike lane and pedestrians crossing over. That's intended to be for, it's also now in the back of the building. So we've gotten rid of that. This is the first floor plan. And we see here that we have about 7,200 square feet of retail, roughly. And that's framing on either side, north and south, the lobby entrance for the residents. Residents will then work their way in. There's an elevator core and stairwells and back of house uses in the center of the building and toward the back of the building. We have a vehicular entrance, again, off the alley with a ramp that goes up to the second floor. And this is that second floor of parking. And then a third floor of parking that totals 57 parking spaces. Some questions have been asked about, is that enough parking? And my firm, Papa George James, we do a lot of residential projects similar to this in Chicago and in other cities. And what we've seen over the last decade or even longer is that the parking ratio, the number of cars per dwelling unit, has been steadily dropping. So at 0.32 cars per dwelling unit, that's very much in line with most of the other projects that we're seeing. I can't think of a recent project where we've had anything much above that or anything close to approaching 1 car per dwelling unit. At the fourth floor, we transition in the building to the first residential floor. And this is on top of the garage. The residents who are on this floor will have access to that roofscape, which will be landscaped, and those units will have outdoor patio space, which will be a nice amenity for those residents. The typical floor plate, this is 13 units per floor, is a mixture of studio units, 1 bedrooms, and 2 2-bedroom units. This is, it's important to note that the affordable units that we have in the project, that's 18 total, will be distributed equally among the various unit types that we have here. And then the top residential floor has a slightly different mix with slightly larger units. And then this is the what we're calling the sky amenity floor. This is housing amenities for the residents who live here. These will be available to all residents of the building with a swimming pool, some other amenity space, a lounge, fitness center, and things of the like, and other amenity space that will face to the east and with tremendous views from all of the upper floors to Lake Michigan, the Northwestern campus, and all the way to downtown Chicago. And this is just back to a view of the ground plane and the street wall retail experience that we will provide along the stretch of Chicago Avenue. So with that, we can open it up to additional questions.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Let's see. Bill?
Yeah, thank you, Claire. My name's Bill Brown. I'm a 35-year member of the United Methodist Church. I serve currently as the chair of the trustees. Have spoken a number of times.
I wanted to see that.
Okay, one moment. Fred, can you mute your mic?
Have spoken a number of times on this project, so have a statement that will make my time efficient. As Bob mentioned, I speak on behalf of the 650 members of the United Methodist Church. The church sits on the edge of the Lakeshore Historic District, as you all may know, and it provides an anchoring presence for our neighborhood since 1870. The First United Methodist Church, or the Methodist Church, was established in Evanston in 1854. So Grace's comments about its place in its community, the people that have been members of it over time, and the stock that it has in this project and concerns about it should be duly noted.
I wanted to see that.
Okay, well, Sorry, one moment. Fred, I think your mic is unmuted.
It is now.
But can you unmute it?
Oh,
I mean, can you mute it? I'm sorry.
Mute it.
Pardon me. Can you mute it? Thanks.
As designed, the proposed 18-story building is completely overbearing on the adjacent historic built environment. It would be a mere 20 feet away from the church across what will be a congested alley. Frankly, it's disturbing that such a tall project would be considered for the east side of Chicago Avenue, where the buildings step down as they move towards the lake. Further, the new building would be directly across the street from an existing building of 20-some floors. A canyon effect in the making for Chicago Avenue. Not a good thing. The site is small, and Jeff spoke to some needs for efficiency. The way to leverage return is to build as tall a building as possible. And this building did start out at some 22 stories. But at the end of the day, profit should not be made at the expense of the neighborhood. It's a simple concept. Besides the height of the building, its impact on alley traffic is a major concern for the church with its 15-space parking lot just off the alley on the south side of the church, directly behind this proposed building. At present, the alley is so busy that waiting to leave the church lot often leads to a delay of 20 minutes or more, not to mention frequent lack of access to the lot. On an occasion, our senior pastor, Grace Matthew, who you just heard from, was significantly delayed in getting to a hospital on an emergency call response. This is not a good situation. The proposed building will make a bad situation worse with increased alley traffic generated by the activity of this building. Tenant deliveries, moving in and out, trash pickup, operational deliveries. If there are restaurants, food delivery would be through there. And all of that would make a circumstance where our lot would practically not be tenable. So in conclusion, the project as planned would have a number of negative impacts on its closest neighbors, including the First United Methodist Church. As a congregation, we believe Horizon can do better. Thanks, Claire.
You're here.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, let's see. Fred?
Okay, I have a comment for Mr. Kent. The pictures that he showed of the front of the building with the gentleman pedaling his bike. What they don't show is the bike lane that's there and the lanes of traffic for all the trucks and buses and cars that go back and forth on Chicago Avenue. That picture does not give a proper view of what it's going to be like. And again, back in reference to what the gentleman was just talking about, 2 loading spots. And also he says 2 floors of parking. If you look at the drawing, it's not 2 floors of parking. There are half floors leading to one another. So that it'd be very difficult even to get the 54 cars parked in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Darlene?
Yes. Thank you, Claire. One of the things I wanted to know, I know there's all this talk about affordable housing. And I know that the affordable housing cheerleaders are on the call to, commend you on putting 1 bedrooms. But the reality is that we have hundreds of homeless families in District 65. We have families that need 2, 3, and even 4 bedrooms. And I can't get up and cheer because you're going to give us 1 bedroom that's not going to give us what we need. We seem to be more concerned about the missing middle. We're more concerned about the middle. We're concerned about Northwestern students not having housing, but we're not concerned about the people at the bottom who are struggling every day to make it. And I think it's so hypocritical that they get up here and they use equity. And I'm not sure that they understand what it is to be equitable and to give people in this community what is needed and not what you deem what is needed. Because right now, what we're doing is that we're doing push out and we're pushing poor people out purposely. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. And Sharon Goodman. Sorry, thank you, Darlene. Sharon Goodman.
I'm sorry. Okay, I think we're losing, at least I'm not hearing. The downtown is our business area. Business, in other words, bringing money and income and shoppers and everything into the downtown. Churches and some of these things that are mentioned are non-tax paying entities. So we're talking about trying to put, you know, we don't want the churches to not have representation and all this stuff. But all these things are not bringing money into the downtown. The tax revenue does. Now, I don't know about Jeffrey Michael's company. I don't know, you know, that's not the point for me. It's that we need to bring some income into the downtown. We need money to make the downtown nice. I mean, it looks shabby now. The bricks are coming up out of the sidewalks and all that. We need money for that. And we're not going to get it by bringing in, and I'm trying to be nice about all this, but about anything that doesn't bring revenue. I think non-revenue bearing businesses maybe should move out of the downtown area just a little bit. I'm not saying don't just leave completely, but we did the Northwestern isn't paying taxes. The houses of worship are not paying taxes. We need that tax revenue coming in.
Thank you, Sharon. And is that Tina? Let's see, the T has a hand raised. Is that Tina Payton? Okay, how about, I also see Jenny Washburn. Do you still have your hand raised? It's just from before.
Thank you. Yeah, no, this is just in response to Sharon's comment. I'm not really sure what you mean in regards to places of worship moving locations. Are you asking the church to leave?
No, I'm not. No. I'm not asking anybody to leave. I'm saying that I see a lot of arguments here from people who represent houses of worship. I belong to a house of worship. I'm not against that at all. I'm just saying that this is a downtown business district that we're trying to build. And how do you build a downtown business district? You build it through TIF and through the tax revenue that comes in from businesses.
Thank you, Sharon. Yeah, my concern with that is that this isn't businesses that they're building apartment complexes. And they're building it.
This is true, but somebody's paying the
Sharon,
tax.
can I talk?
Sure. Who is that?
Yeah,
Let's see.
Can I just finish my thought?
Go
As I
ahead.
mentioned before, these people are going to appeal their tax valuation as soon as they get it. I can guarantee you right now.
But they're
Yeah.
still paying tax.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, that's better than institutions. that
I
don't
am not
pay
going to
tax.
argue with you. I do not agree with you.
I know.
Okay,
I
thank you
know.
both. I appreciate both your comments.
I
Thank
know.
I am going to call on someone else though, but thank you very much. And I do appreciate debate also, but just because there are others with their hands raised. Tina Payton. Okay, Lester.
Yes, thanks for calling on me. The question I had was for the either the architect or the developer is whether you had checked with the city of Evanston whether our infrastructure could actually handle a building of this size, specifically, more than just congestion on the street, but the volume of effluent that would come out of the sewer system or into our sewer system, considering that the current state of our climate is that we get a once in 100-year rains about every 2 years or so, and seemingly once in a 500-year rain in every 5 or 10 years. it would be a real problem if downstream people got sewer backup. Right now, the city has been lining sewers to get more life out of them. So our sewer system is aging along with every other city in the country. So I was wondering if you had checked to see whether both water and sewer could be supplied to a building of this size.
Okay, and before I have you answer that, thank you. It's a great question. I just want to, there are a couple more people that have their hands raised. Sue Lulbach.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. I'd just like to say, I do feel the affordable housing proposal for this building, it looks pretty strong. As the pro formas develop and the proposal evolves, I would love to see the affordability of those affordable units be as deep as possible. We'd really love to see some 50% units there. I am assuming that there's no way to get even less expensive, that we're going to have to look beyond inclusionary zoning to get the less expensive units. But you know, the deeper you can make the affordability, the better. And I would like to just throw a couple numbers out there. In terms of the unit sizes, we of course like to see as much variety there as possible. The number of households in Evanston that have just 1 or 2 people in them is over 18,000. The number of households that have more than 2 people is about 9,000. So we have about twice as many households that probably only need 1 or 2 bedrooms as we do households that need larger apartments. We need affordable housing for households of every size. So I just wanted to put that out. Thank you.
Thank you. And Bob Froscher.
Thanks. A couple quick comments. One, this is not just a business district. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who live in this area. This is my home. When I bought my home in a condo right near this proposed development, I checked and researched and understood the zoning requirements of this area. This building violates those zoning requirements. I checked the 2009 Evanston City Plan, which the city spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, researching best practices across cities in the US. And the conclusion was that block should have buildings no taller than 6 to 10 stories. And if you look at that block and look at it, you look at the buildings, including the Marion, by the way, none of them are more than 6 to 10 stories. There's a reason for that. It is not just a business district. It is a residential district. It is a community. It happens to have a church as well. And I would ask those of you who are so cavalier to talk about raising tax revenues on the backs of people who live there, how would you feel if your neighbor across the back of your yard built something that was way out of code or way out of zone? And it's just unbelievable that we would even consider pursuing this. Finally, I'd like to mention that the behavior of this particular developer and their support team, I think, has been less than transparent. Last time we went through this drill, which was roundly defeated, on the Friday before the city council vote, that Monday, this group, this developer proposed a $100,000 plus windfall to the reparations committee in a meeting that was outside the process, the approved process for this particular building's review and approval. And that was done in the presence of 3 older council members at the time, who none of whom raised any concerns about it. I'm going to be very concerned, should this make it to the city council, to understand whether there have been donations or contributions to any member of the city council from anybody at this particular developer, personally or business-wise, or from any of their supporting organizations. This is not the way business should be done. Maybe we do that in Chicago, but that's not the way we do business in Evanston. We're transparent here, and I'm just being very transparent. I will be following this every step of the way, And I guess one thing that would be interesting to hear is whether Mr. Michaels, anyone on his staff, anyone employed by his company, Jonathan Perlman, or any of the other vendors supporting this proposal have made any donations to any council member or any nonprofit here in Evanston in an effort to sway public opinion or even private opinion as to how this particular development should be viewed.
Thank you very much, Bob. Tina, do you want to try now and see if if your mic works?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so just to piggyback on what the last caller just said about public benefits or paying the alderman. So last time, I believe that you came forward for presentation, you were donating 100,000 to the reparations fund. So what is the public benefit, or what are you offering this time?
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll just take one.
Well, I have some other ones, but
Okay,
I
why
didn't
don't you
know
go
if you
ahead
wanted me to
rather?
continue.
Yeah, why don't you continue and then we'll let them, and then we'll give another chunk of time to Horizon.
Okay, so also it's 18 units. What percentage AMI? Is that 60% AMI or HUD standard, which most of the buildings that are being built now are the inclusionary housing is 50 or 60% AMI, but HUD standard is 30% AMI. I do not see any new buildings with 30% AMI, which is very important because I would like to know the cost of these supposed affordable units and what are the starting cost of the other units. Also, some callers and people listening, and also the presenter talks about we need more housing to fill up the stores. We do not need any more housing. We already have 5 billion luxury apartments. Say again, listen, luxury apartments. Some person made a comment about my comment before, and they live in a condominium. A condominium is not a luxury apartment. And most developers get 10 years of free tax when they first build a building. So don't compare a condominium with a luxury apartment building. It's completely different. We need stores, not apartments. What's happening now is we have all these apartment buildings, and then people are taking their money to Skokie and Lincolnwood because we don't have any stores. We used to have Marshall Fields, Weeboats, Woolworths. We don't have anything. We just got Target downtown Evanston, which was a good move, but we don't have anything. Evanston is not going to be a destination city with all of these luxury apartment buildings.
Thank you, Tina. And Carol Bass?
Hi, I live in a 16-story condominium building downtown, and I happen to be the president of the board. I've lived here for 12 years, so I am very familiar and I'm really familiar with issues that have to do with the day-to-day workings and the day-to-day traffic patterns in buildings. And I'm looking at your ground floor plan, and it makes no sense to me. I do not have a bias against tall buildings, but they have to be set up so that they make sense in the neighborhood and also so that they make sense inside. And this one I don't understand. There is no setback from the alley in the back, which, especially based on the comments that we've had that this alley gets stopped up as it is, I don't understand why there's not a setback from the alley. But the huge problem is the lobby is in the front, and where is the access from the back, which is where all of the vehicular traffic is going to be. So cabs and Ubers and, you know, picking up and dropping off. What about packages? Are those vehicles going to use the loading zone? But you look at this, you look at your floor plan and it makes no sense. I don't know where people walk in. The only hallway that is there that exists to get from the back of the building to the lobby in front or to the elevators, and you have to go around almost in a circle to get to the elevators. The only hallway that there is shares hallway space with all of the stuff that's coming off of trucks in the loading zone. So it looks like the plan is for the loading for all of the, you know, for people's move in and move outs, that all of those materials are going to come through the hallway sort of in the center, go into a staging area, which is good, you've got that, and then use the center of the 3 elevators. But that hallway also has to be used by the people coming in and out of the building. There's the lobby in front looks like it will be nice, but the people are going to be entering and exiting, except for pedestrian traffic, from the back. And there's going to, you know, how is that going to work? Would you please walk us through that and explain how that's going to work?
Should I do that now?
Yeah, so are there any other, let's see, I'm sorry, there's a couple more questions, and then I've been writing down the questions, so we're sure we don't miss them. Tricia Connolly.
Hi, Tricia Connolly. A couple of things. I know you're taking a lot of feedback tonight, but personally, I really love the facade on that side of the street. And, you know, sadly, it seems like time and time again, there's very little interest in maintaining some of the things that make Evanston, Evanston. And I'm not sure why. Because when we use words like creative and exciting and innovative, this always seems to get left behind. And I would love to see a design that actually includes what's already there. This design with a lot of new building designs really speaks to retail space or restaurant space that has chain written all over it, because you're just not going to find local entrepreneurs or restaurateurs or people who are going to do a boutique type arrangement and be able to pay for it in this kind of spaces that you're going to have. You know, I'm no expert here, but that's what I know by what I've seen in these new developments. So that's concerning to me. In addition, I'm really tired of developers coming to tell us all they're going to do for affordable housing. Look, we have an ordinance that states you must give that to us. So please don't, you know, toot your horn that you're doing all that for us when what we have to get is that you're asking for all kinds of allowances. Just stop. Don't do it. Don't do that on the backs of people who need housing and act like you're doing a big old favor. It's really, you know, it's not pleasant. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Connolly. And Reverend Pastor Grace.
Thank you. Just quickly ran my numbers here after the question about needing to have more business in Evanston, and sort of the idea of spiritualizing the church, that we were not contributing to the economy of Evanston. And I see that 739 persons who live outside the 60201 and 60202 have attended First Church before the pandemic, physically there, which means that they have probably gone to lunch at the church in Evanston. We are the biggest billboard for Evanston. So this is the way people come to Evanston through our community. So I wanted to say we do contribute to the economy of Evanston.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Kira Kelly.
Hi, I just wanted to comment on, talking about that the architect mentioned he wanted to continue the pedestrian experience here. And I wanted to say that pedestrians are there because there's the restaurants and the shop and the stores right there, including one of the, best known restaurants probably in town, Found. And it's one of the one of the few blocks left in Evanston that is vibrant, and it has al fresco dining. Yet developments like these are approved and it kills the block. We can look at the Albion, just a block down on Sherman. They promised a great restaurant. They promised continuing the pedestrian experience, and it replaced, similar to this, 6 lots or so of spaces that were affordable to independent restaurants and businesses that people like. What's there now? And of course, an empty storefront that's appropriate for chains that no one's ever moved into. All of these developments have empty storefronts. And the city has approved high rise after high rise for just this rationale to bring residents here. But instead, the opposite, to bring people here to shop and help the businesses. But the opposite has happened. Independent businesses have been either their space has been taken away by these buildings or they've been driven out by the rising rents. And residents don't come downtown as much anymore because there's nothing to come to. I mean, not nothing, but there's less to come to. And if we take away this vibrant stretch right here, there's at one of the most popular restaurants in Evanston, you're going to take away yet another reason for not only residents, but visitors to come. We're kind of just left with a downtown full of block-long high rises. So thank you.
Thank you, Kira. Okay, let's see if there are any more comments or questions. If not, maybe you all could answer some of the questions. Adrian Brown.
Hi, can you hear me correctly? So I'm just gonna make a slight comment based off a lot of things I was hearing today. And I'm very grateful to be a part of this meeting and to listen in to a lot of the community members. And ultimately, like for me, I feel like the biggest thing that I've heard is the concern of this building potentially taking away business opportunities for individuals that want to come into the city in particular. And for me, I feel like I can understand the concern around that. I can understand how it's so significant to many community members in particular. And I guess, that is something that people want to continue to have being an attraction in downtown. But I feel like ultimately, if we don't even formulate the right types of businesses that have longevity, like the local YMCA, that's a community organization that contributes to this type of program very well, and has been in Evanston's history for decades. And that's a great ran organization that's non-for-profit. And it's the same type of thing. So, ultimately we can continue to build businesses like this that have longevity. It doesn't just because the business is coming and having a particular need doesn't mean that that need is, specifically necessary for the community. Like we have to come together and try to formulate correct businesses that we would want for our community and that are going to last, because there's a lot of young people in particular, speaking as a young person, that don't want to go to downtown because there's nothing for us downtown. So it's like we have to formulate things that make sense to bring people even into the community if we're going to have that type of conversation in the long run. So that's just ultimately what I wanted to say based off of that assessment. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Brown. And there's one more question here in the text that that's asked: where would a vehicle pull over to pick somebody up or drop them off? So just to add that to the questions, and I think that was the last question I see. Make sure. Yeah, I don't see any other questions. So, okay, with that, there was a question. I wrote down a bunch of them about if you could discuss the AMI percentages, the community benefits, loading zone, pickups and drop-offs. Thank you.
So first discussing or addressing the affordable housing, the AMI, we're going to comply with the code, which requires those 13 units to be provided at the 60% AMI level. And the unit mix, there's some commentary on the unit mix. The unit mix would also need to mirror the unit mix of the building. So if, for example, 50% of the building is 1 bedrooms and 50% is 2 bedrooms, hypothetically, then the affordable unit mix would also mirror the unit mix of the balance of the building.
So what is that unit mix then?
It's roughly, as it stands right now, 14% are studios, 54% are 1 bedrooms, and 31% are 2 bedrooms. And then there was a comment about we're doing a quote unquote big old favor on affordable housing. We're not suggesting at all we're doing any sort of big old favor. We're complying with the IHO on providing the 13 units. What he or she may be referencing is we're providing 5 additional units as our public benefit affordable units. Alderman Kelly, you mentioned the loading, the pickup, and the drop off. Presume we would probably apply for a loading zone in front of the building. Now we do have loading berths where the activity is supposed to take place for drop offs and pickups. But everyone that's on this call has to understand and fully recognize that this is our plan B. Plan A, if you recall from 2 years ago, was to have a portico share and a curb cut off of Chicago Avenue so that all of our activity, our loading, our unloading would take place on our premises within a circular drive. It was at the behest of the city planners and the feedback that we received from numerous people that a curb cut was not wanted, and that what was wanted instead was the formulation that we've come up with here now, where the ingress and egress takes place off of the alley. So the design that you see today and the manner in which operationally pickups, drop-offs, and all that will take place, that was all done at the behest of responses that we received from city planners.
And the question about, so is that in response then to pickups and drop-offs as is presented now? So that would happen in the alley?
Well, there's a loading dock. So they're supposed to use a loading dock and the loading bays, but we all know the reality of life and the way it works is you've seen it. There's Amazon trucks and what have you. They pull over. We'll apply for a loading zone there where they put their flashes on, pull over, and do their business and take off. That's how it's done throughout the city. It's done everywhere that way.
Okay, and then just for like individuals, like dropping off or picking up an individual, same
manner, they would utilize a loading zone that we would apply for.
Okay.
That, just to clarify, I think that would all occur in the front of the building. The loading berths that are off the alley are intended for larger uses, move in, move out, garbage pickup, deliveries and things like that. Pick up and drop off for things like Uber and cabs and that kind of thing would happen in the front of the building on Chicago Avenue.
On the Chicago, yeah. So no sort of like what's at the Marion where there's sort of a driveway in front.
No.
No. Okay, Fred, you have another question?
Yeah, he just said no. The picture that they had shows the sidewalk and a bicycle in it, and no place for a car to pull in to pick somebody up or take somebody out. And I sure wouldn't want myself or any of my family have to go to the loading dock to get in a taxi cab. That's ridiculous.
That's not the intent. The intent is not to have anybody go into a loading berth for cabs or anything like that. That would never happen.
No, have you been on Chicago Avenue? Do you realize how many cars would be backed up on northbound Chicago Avenue if people were double parked to try and get somebody in or out of a car? There's 2 lanes of traffic. There's no place. the Marion, that has it someplace they pull off the street. You'd have to back your building up about 14 or 50 feet to get the driveway for them to get in and out of your building and not block traffic on Chicago Avenue. Look at your picture again. There's a man on a bike in the middle of the northbound lane. Then there's a curb and a sidewalk, and then there's your building. There's no way for somebody to drop somebody off. And don't tell me to go to the loading dock, please.
No, we wouldn't tell you to go to the loading dock. The intent there, just to clarify your question, is that there's a row of parallel parked cars there. There's public parking there between the drive lanes and the bike lane. And one or two of those spots would be applied for as a loading zone for exactly that purpose. So the hope is that there wouldn't be anybody double parked on the street. And there would never be a situation where somebody would be picked up or dropped off in a loading dock at the back or at the alley. Just make that very clear.
Well, that wasn't what the other gentleman said. No, but
To be applied for.
yeah, well, and you'd have to have more than one parking space. See, look at the drive up on the Marion. There's enough room there. And by the way, the ambulances that go to the Marion, they have plenty ways to get in there with the fire trucks without blocking traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Fred. And Pastor Grace?
Yeah, just quickly to say that the alley is already a nightmare for us. My office is in the building. I am there Mondays through Mondays from around 8 until midnight. There are times when it is impossible. There is so much going on, delivery trucks in that alley. For the first time in my life, I have actually had to learn curse words because it is so bad. So those who don't live there, I just want to really emphasize for you who don't work there, that alley is already a nightmare. And I just can't see how things are going to improve. We're going to have to lose our parking lot if this goes through.
Thank you. Cecile McHugh?
Hi, I don't have prepared comments, so please excuse my maybe rambling comments, but what I wanted to say is I just had to speak up when I heard about this issue of dropping people off. And related to what Fred said, heard what Fred had to say, it's just horrible to imagine that traffic is going to be stopped, and believe me, it will. And I heard to drop people off and pick people up. I heard the developers say that the plan was to ask for a couple of parking places in front for drop off and pickup, and that needs to be part of the plan and stated, and also to have a study as to how many or some data supporting how many spots need to be reserved and whether that's possible. Additionally, I heard what I believe the pastor said about the alley traffic. So the traffic study for this development needs to also include a study of traffic in the alley. Thank you.
We already have done a traffic study, including the alley. The city has that.
Oh, that's great. I will go read that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Do you, Megan or Johanna, would you want to just go over the variances that are requested so it's clear for the residents who are in attendance?
Sure, I can pull that up.
Oh, I'm sorry, there are two more hands raised.
Okay.
Candy?
Thank you. I've spoken about these things last time, but I was trying to think what bothers me so much about the alley issue coming up again like this, because I use the alley. My parking space is right next to the church parking spaces behind 1616 where I'm a renter. And I think what bothers me is that anybody who proposes having loading docks and entries for cars back there is using magical thinking to think that it's at all possible. And I think if you do that about the alleyway, then what else, in what other areas, you know, are you using magical thinking? I mean, it's just impossible. You know, I dare you to make it possible, but I've lived there for 4 years and often get stuck trying to go in or out. And I think some other approach, a smaller building, less traffic, not using the whole plot for apartments is going to have to be considered to make it work. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kira, and then Carol. Kira
Hi,
Keller?
yes, sorry. Is this building still a senior luxury building or a senior oriented building? The last proposal from this developer was.
Yeah, previous
just-
conditions were senior. We pivoted, and this is proposed as a market rate apartment. They're not seniors.
What was your reasoning?
A couple things. The world kind of changed with COVID. We saw an increased demand of people flocking to cities and wanting to live in the suburbs. So that was one of the things. And then also, since we've started this process, I believe 2 other senior housing complexes have opened in Evanston to alleviate some of the demand and issues, and so there's more supply there. And then also just the fact that the building has become smaller to provide the amenities that you need for senior living, dining programs, social spaces, and all that. You just simply can't fit it in this size of the building. So when we took all those things together, we decided to pivot and just go with market rate apartments.
Okay, thank you. And Carol Bass?
Hi. I really do think that some rethinking needs to be done on this. You know, I'm picturing people getting picked up and dropped off and having to avoid bikers in the bike lane. Also, a building this size is going to have a lot of packages delivered during the daytime and is going to have tons and tons of food deliveries at nighttime. It's just the way things are, and they're getting more and more that way. And it's difficult to imagine it being at all safe if there are going to be just a couple of spots in front, and then for all of those deliveries and all of those people being picked up and dropped off, that they're trying to dodge bikers. And the bikers aren't, that it just seems like a disaster waiting to happen. It just doesn't seem safe.
Thank you. Okay, I think I don't see any more hands raised. I'm sorry, Megan, to cut you off.
I do. No problem. I can quickly list the development allowances that they are requesting. They are the number of units, the building height, the number of parking spaces, and the number of loading berths. Because they are providing the IHO affordable units on site, they do receive bonuses, of one of which includes a bit of a bump for the FAR. So that actually is not going to be a site development allowance. But at this point, those are the requested.
Are you going to bed?
Thank
Development
you.
allowances.
Oh.
Okay, thank you. Chris Steele?
Yes, I wish to belabor the point of the traffic in the alley. I live at 522 Church. My exit for my garage is out into the alley, and I often am confronted with trucks that can't move and have no place to go because it's so congested. In addition, the number of delivery trucks for the restaurants that line up on Church Street waiting to get into the alley is quite numerous, plus the UPS, the mail, and the Amazon and delivery trucks. The area not just the alley, but Church Street is highly congested, trying to get into that alley. And as a resident of more than, I don't know, almost 20 years, I find that lately getting out of my garage is a greater difficulty. I'm not the only one that has to leave that garage, but I find that the increased traffic that will develop with this building will be a bigger problem, as the pastor has mentioned, and the other residents that live, that rent in along Hinman. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, Tina.
Yes, I wanted to know about the green space. Maybe I missed that. And is there a lot of the buildings now are talking about the green space and able to have people come to sit on a bench in the green space or something like that? I didn't see that in the presentation. And I had another question I forgot. Also, how much is the rent? I'm not sure if I heard that.
Thank you.
I'll let Tim address the green space. As far as the rents go, we are projecting, depending upon when this building comes to market, the rents would be somewhere from $3 to $3.25 per square foot, which is about what the market is on a Class A building. What that ends up being for a studio apartment, anywhere from $1,500 to $1,700, a one bedroom from $1,900 to about $2,100, and a two bedroom from $2,500 to $2,900.
Thank you.
And regarding the green space, because the lot is covered by the whole building footprint, there isn't a space on the ground level for a park or green space on the ground. For residents, there will be some space above the garage on the 4th floor, and then space at the top of the building on the roof that will be landscaped.
There's a dog park on the top of your roof.
That's part of the roof.
Thank you. And let's see, Mary Rosinski.
Hi, I had a question for Megan. I know you had said, could you be more specific as far as what is allowed now versus what the variances are? Because in a PUD, everything is up in the air. It's not a given. And I think this is a big miscommunication in Evanston as to what is allowed by quote permit or by whatever they say. So could you be
By
more
right.
by right? And it's, but my understanding over the years is that once it goes to PUD, everything is negotiable. And the city council has the ability to ask for certain things in exchange. You don't just get it because you are a PUD. So could you tell us what exactly is allowed right now, and then what numbers are being asked for, just to help clarify it?
So like maybe the, whatever the feet, the FAR and parking,
Right.
what the
I'll
numbers
let
that
Megan
are.
jump in a minute. I think big picture, good evening, everyone. Johanna Knight, Community Development Director. Planned developments are large scale developments, and we have a threshold in our zoning code in which different aspects of a development would trigger a planned development. So it's a number of units on a particular site, it's the size of the site, it's the mix of uses. There's about 4 or 5, and I'll put in the chat the link to what triggers a planned development in our city code. But those are the things that trigger it. So even if they're under the height or the number of units, this would still be a planned development. And it would still trigger those things because our zoning code says that we should review these projects before they're built. And that is a privilege that is in our city code for the city council to review.
I understand that, Joanna, but my question is, under the current zoning, if it were to PUD, which we know it's going to be because the existing is too small, what is currently allowed. Like if I was in an R1 district, I know I could build 37.5 feet tall. I have to be within X amount of feet from the sides. I know I have to be 27 feet from the front, and I can have one house and an AUD. But for this area, what is it? Because I know it triggers it, but it doesn't necessarily mean an automatic give is what we've talked about over the years. So I'm just want to know, I just having a hard time understanding.
You could just describe the district and what's allowed, like what the height is, so that we have an idea of where we're going. Like,
Thank
so
you.
what is by right, like how many floors or how many feet, I guess, is allowed in this district currently?
All right, so the zoning analysis, which is actually on the website, actually kind of explains each of these things. This is in the D4 district. So
Okay.
the site development allowances that I mentioned for the number of units for a lot of this size, 54 units would be permitted. As it is currently proposed, there are 128 base units that are proposed. They are proposing to have 13 on-site affordable units, which meets the inclusionary housing ordinance requirements. Because they are meeting that requirement, they get bonus units, which bumps them up to 180 units total that they're proposing for the site. For the building height, the maximum permitted in the district, the base height is 105 feet, which I think was mentioned earlier. With the site development allowance, they can get up to 145 feet. Now this does not include levels within a building that are primarily for parking. So that does not count towards the zoning height, I will say that. So they are proposing 195 feet, about 20 feet of which is dedicated to parking. So they are, I think, just under 175 feet in height. So typically this would exceed the site development allowance. However, because they are meeting the inclusionary housing ordinance requirements, they get that bonus. So it is no longer going to require a supermajority vote from city council.
But nevertheless, it's not within right? So it's still required.
Right.
This isn't within right. So it's still a
yeah.
PDA, like we can still make,
Yeah, it's still considered a site development allowance. For the parking spaces, they are proposing 57 parking spaces, which includes 8 compact spaces. I do want to clarify for that. Because this is in a transit-oriented development area, and they are having a certain number of inclusionary housing ordinance units on site, the total number of parking spaces that they would be required to have is 130.
Great, thank you. So I think that's mainly what I understand. The question is, so 54 units is allowed in this space, in this district, in this location. 105 units would be allowed, and required parking for something for a structure this size would be 130. Did I get that right? Okay,
right.
just
and there is one more site development allowance regarding the loading berths. Because they have a larger amount of retail space, they are required to have 3, and they're proposing 2, as you saw.
Okay. So for that size building, 3 loading dock, spaces would be required. Okay, so a good number of variances are being requested. Thank you so much. Cecile McHugh.
Hi, yes, I wanted to comment that, but for planned development, the public benefit must outweigh the negative impact. And so I wanted to ask the city or the developers, what is the public benefit of this development? Thank you.
So as we stated before, the public benefit is the 5 extra affordable housing units that we are building on site.
Is there anything else?
That is
And
it.
the city? Is that what we're saying? Is it the entire public benefit is the 5 extra affordable housing units?
That
The city doesn't determine public benefits.
Okay.
And if I could.
So the Land Use
clarify-
Commission will? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
If I could clarify, just so you understand, on those 5 extra units, those will be committed to be affordable for either 15 or 25 years. And we've done the calculations, the savings that amounts to the renters it's in excess of $2 million. So when you say that is it, I think that's a pretty significant amount. Just want to clarify what that means in real dollars in terms of that contribution.
No, I wasn't minimizing that, actually. I just wanted to be stated for the record
Okay.
that the public benefit is those 5 extra affordable units for the period of time that you said. All
That's
right,
correct.
thank you.
I'm sorry, for 20 years or 25?
We haven't decided yet on what that time commitment is.
Would you consider in perpetuity?
We'll consider anything.
Well, I'd ask that any affordable units going forward, I'd like these to be in perpetuity.
And that would need to be stated. The number of years. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Any other questions? Tina?
Yeah, how many square feet is the commercial? And how many storefronts are divided? You know, how many storefronts would that be?
Sure. It's a good question. Currently, there's 2. They total about 7,200 square feet, so roughly 3,500 to 3,600 square feet each.
And do you have, what happens a lot of times when they have these luxury apartment buildings come about, the places end up vacant. What is the rent amount for the storefront? And do you have any idea who you might want to have in those units?
Sure. So I could speak a little bit to that because we own the retail space immediately to the south, and the market rates on those spaces range anywhere from like $25 to about $32 per square foot. Do we currently have a tenant in mind? Absolutely not, just way too premature. But as we mentioned, our goal, our hope would be to find a user, preferably a restaurant space, that could really maximize and activate that pedestrian corridor and bring people there and bring good tax revenue. We're going to design it in such a way that those windows can open up and there could be al fresco dining, someone mentioned before, and I'd like to mention all that. I mean, I think we're a big contributor to the al fresco dining that actually exists there. We're the ones that pushed Tapas Barcelona to go and help them get their al fresco dining and add the outdoor patio there. Same with Joyi, we built them a new space on the corner of Chicago and Davis, and they have outdoor dining. La Cocinita, Found Restaurant. So we're a major proponent of that. We want to activate that block and bring more pedestrians there. And we have another restaurant coming. I don't want to say too much, but in the building right adjacent to the south, they're doing a build out now. I don't know if anybody's walked by there recently, but it's gonna be great, new, independent, non-franchise. None of our places are franchises, actually. They're all independent. So we have a new independent proprietor opening up a great business, which I think is be an awesome concept. He should be open probably in about 60 days.
I'd also add that the spaces right now, it's shown as 2 retail spaces, but those could be subdivided into smaller. So there could be more than 2 retailers there. It could be as many as 4 or 5 or 6, depending on what happens with the leasing there.
Terrific. Okay, any more questions? Otherwise, I think we're going on to 2 hours, and I'm so grateful for so many people attending this evening and for the great conversation. And really, as you can see, there are many very, very serious concerns about the proposal. So thank you all for bringing your thoughts. This is how we make Evanston great, right? Collaborating, participating, and being part of this. So I'm very grateful. Thank you. This is a great turnout. Any other last questions?
Good night, all.
Okay, good night, Fred. Good night, everybody.
Thank you,
Johanna.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.